We've all heard the expression that it's never too late to grow. And today's guest on the podcast is a good friend of mine, but somebody that embodies that because he refers to himself as a constant work in progress. He's always trying to evolve and get better and grow, not just as a professional, but as a human being, as a husband, and as a father. Chris Medellin, a regional vice president over at Loan Depot and one of the most influential thought leaders and just professionals in the mortgage and real estate space, sat down with me for this episode on the LFG Energy podcast. Chris came from very humble beginnings, but has used that humility, which he forever remains in, to continue to drive him and lift others around him. He's an incredibly inspiring figure and an overall great human being, and I know you guys are going to love this episode. So let's get into it. I am really excited about this episode today, man, because we've been talking about this for a minute. And there's been some things which we're going to touch on in the show today that kind of inspired this moment into happening. It was off conversations that you and I had privately. And I thought, I want this to be shared. Not only because you're an incredible leader in business and in our industry and someone that I look up to and respect and admire, but because you're like this study of the human game yourself and someone who considers himself a work in progress and he's always trying to get better. And that's what this show is all about, man. So I want to talk business, entrepreneurship, life, lifestyle, even health. But let's first start with decisions. Like life is pretty much a huge consortium of decisions and moments, right, that shape us. Talk to me about a recent decision, or maybe from a few years ago that you and I have touched on, pertaining to a lifestyle choice that you've made that has altered the trajectory of your life and it's impacting it in so many different ways.
Yeah, well, I think I know what you're talking about. So a few years ago, it's been about a year and a half actually. Probably like almost to the date if you think about it, or if I think about it. I just decided one day that I was not going to drink anymore. Now there was a lot of decisions leading up to that, but I'm in an industry where it's so widely accepted, and I'm in a my entire being and my entire brand at one point was really built around I'm the party guy. I'm the guy that, we're going to do the drinks, we're going to do the happy hours, we're going to do all that stuff. And then, so I was really trying to really figure out a way to redefine who I am and how I behave and how I show up and have to just hit the reset at such a, like at an older age in life. I'm 40, I was 48, 47 at the time, and to have to rethink all of that was really tough for me to do, but it was time. And I just stopped one day to the next cold turkey.
Talk to me more about how that decision
Yeah.
has had like a positive ripple effect in your marriage, in your life, in your business.
Well, I'm not gonna like sugarcoat it for you, man. It wasn't really easy in the beginning because I would say like the first year, bro, like I've been drinking. So let me take you back. I've been drinking since I could remember. Like I would probably venture to guess that from 16 on, I've drank pretty consistently, right? It's been a part of my life. Um, and so I've never really knew how to cope with either success, with failure, with a tough conversation. I think I was thinking, I think Fabio and I talked about it on my podcast. I don't remember that I had actually had a 100% sober dinner with my wife up until I stopped drinking because there was always some drinking involved, with dinners, right? Um, so then I had to figure out how to cope. I had to figure out like how to feel, how to be a person, how to be a human without like,
The crutch of alcohol.
yeah. And the crutch of alcohol is really like a disappearance. It's like, hey, we had a really great week. Go drink, right? Like go hide, right? Or you know, um, but it was all because I didn't really understand how to cope. So for me, with her, I kind of I kind of pulled in because so it wasn't like she got like, oh, overnight, you're not drinking anymore. You're like the best husband ever. It was like, no, I got to figure out myself and I need time. I need space to figure that out, to figure out how to deal with things. So I got real quiet and I think it really impacted her. And then one day I think I finally just went to her and I was like, I think I'm ready to like work on us. I wasn't ready before, but I think I am now because I had to work on me first. And they say like you got to love yourself before you can love anybody else.
Sure.
I don't think I had ever really loved myself and felt worthy enough to truly be in my being without alcohol. And I'm not telling. I don't think I was like a lush running around town, like
Sure.
with a trail of disaster or anything. I was very functional in the sense that I knew how to, how much to drink, when to drink. Like at social or work events, I would never get drunk. I could drink like 6 drinks and not even feel it.
Wow.
But if I went out with my wife and her friends, I'd like pass out at dinner or like just fall asleep, like weird shit, after 3 drinks.
Yeah.
It was always this weird situation that I'd find myself in that I figured, can't really control this and I need to stop.
And so you're right, man. Like so much of our industry
Mhm.
is like this because there's the happy hour, there's the networking event, or there's the after party, right? Like alcohol is this huge center of society, of these social systems. And so it's almost like you're just programmed. I mean, look, like the expression happy hour. You can't have fun or be happy unless you have a drink in hand. Like it's kind of everywhere. But you touched on how a little bit actually in another conversation you and I had earlier today about there was somebody that you and I both know who you saw and you had assumed this guy was like
Yeah.
a functioning alcoholic because he was so high energy and just like
Yeah.
a monster,
Yeah.
right? But it was just his personality.
Oh.
And he actually turns out he'd been sober for a long time. But
Mhm.
that kind of set off a light bulb in you or like an aha moment as well, right? In your journey.
Yeah, well, there were a few things that had happened. Like I found myself interested in the story around how people stopped drinking,
Hmm.
right? If somebody didn't buy, like, I never shamed anybody who didn't drink. Like, I was always like the one who was like, okay, tell me more. Like, how
Yeah.
are you functioning, right? So Thomas Bepko had let me in on a podcast that he had not drank, and I was like, really? Like, I had no idea because his energy and just the way that he approached things to me made me think that he was a big drinker. In fact, I remember me and Fabio talking. I was like, oh yeah, I thought so too. Um, but then there were more people. I had done an interview. Well, there were Ricky Abood was another one.
Yep.
He had a really good story. He said, why would I ever approach? He said he was in line to get a drink for like a New Year's Eve party, and he was like, wait, why would I take the first day of the year to be hungover? Like if you're trying to start a new year, feeling like
Wow. Yep.
everybody start resets in the new year. Why would I start that reset hungover? And I was like, I never thought about that. You just unlocked this magical thing that I never thought about, right? So then there was that. But I did a podcast with Sean Kaplan,
Mm.
and he had just gone through like a treatment that he had shared on the podcast, like a really immersive treatment. And at the time, I don't know where he's at with his sobriety or if he's sober or not. That's his business. But like he had said, I just stopped. I'm just going to stop everything. And at that moment, I was like, okay, if he can, why can't I? And he's doing well. I don't see
Yeah.
him nervous in rooms, and there could be life after this, right?
Yeah.
So I just it was after that podcast I stopped drinking, like off Sean's. I just never drank again after that.
For anyone listening who has always from the social anxiety or the social crutch of thinking like I gotta have a drink in my hand to have a good time
Mhm.
or to get through this happy hour or to be around people. Sometimes people have anxiety around people,
Yeah.
right? Or big groups. What would you say to someone listening who is contemplating like I know I probably shouldn't drink and I'd love to give it up one day, but I can't get through that event or
Yeah.
get through a visit with my in-laws or whatever it is
Oh yeah.
without it?
Dude, I remember I'll tell you the story that'll answer this question, but I remember there was a time where um I don't know if I should tell the story. More because it's not about me, but more about somebody else. So there was somebody in my family, I'll say it this way,
Okay.
that we didn't want there to be any alcohol around them. And I remember thinking to myself, like having a little bit of resentment about it. So I remember like on Thanksgiving or whatever day it was that we were all sitting down, like sneaking it. Like I was like, I'm still gonna have a drink, Like I couldn't for the life of that individual let it go.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, I'm good, like this is me who I am. I drink, right? And so I do know that there is like somebody who's listening that really also has those mornings where they're hungover and they're like, this, I have to really rethink who I am. And those thoughts go through your mind and you're like, man, I gotta stop, I gotta stop, I gotta stop. But when I stopped, when I decided I was gonna stop, I did something also that was really important is I went to a mastermind and they forced me to post about it. And when I did that, I let the world know who I was and where I was. And then I was like, okay, now I have to be a man of my word, right? It was like little hacks in my head that was like, if somebody sees me out drinking, they're gonna think I'm a hack, right? My
Yeah.
wife's gonna think that I didn't hold my word, right?
Yeah. I'm accountable
All
now.
those things,
Yeah.
right? The accountability. So to answer your question, there's so many hacks that I would do, and I'll list them out for you in no particular order. Number one, um, for the first year, I was extremely anxious walking into a restaurant because from the moment that I walk into a restaurant to the moment that the food arrives at the table, I drank during that period. Every dinner I ever had, I drank. So that was like I enjoyed that time. But that first, like, 6 months to a year, I couldn't hear anything my wife was telling me, my kids were telling me or anything, because the noise and everything was, like, high anxiety for me that I was like, "I need a fucking drink.
Yeah.
I This is, like, my time to drink," and I couldn't anymore. So I just had to pre-plan. I was like, "Okay, as soon as I get there, I'm gonna just order, I had 3 options. I'm gonna get a fake beer, right, a non-alcoholic beer, because then that'll, like, trick my brain. And I'm not a purist in a sense that like some people are like, oh, you can't drink fake drinks. I drink fake drinks. I drink fake beers all the time. But I was like, I'll get one of those. And if they don't have that, I'll get a club soda with a lime. And somebody taught me this trip, get it with a salted rim, like club soda with a salted rim. I was like, that's amazing. I'll do that. So like just these little hacks on drinks that I can get that would just trick my brain into like having something in my hand. But I had to pre-plan. Like as soon as they come, I knew what I was going to order. So that was one. Number two, I had to plow through it because my business doesn't give me I'm not afforded the ability to not show up to events.
No.
I have to go. It's my livelihood. Um, so I just had to pre-plan. Like I just decided I wasn't going to drink. When I decided I was going to do it, I wasn't going to do it. I now had to deal with the anxiety, but for the first 6 months it sucked. But I got through it, and now I can go to an event and not even think twice about it. Like I don't think twice about it at all. It's not even a thought in my mind. It's like I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to enjoy smoking
Yeah.
until one day I didn't like the way that I smelled, and I was like, okay, like I don't like the way I smell afterwards, so I can't smoke anymore. And then I thought, well, but I really miss it. So how do I get past the smell? So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be hungover anymore. So I feel like if I drink,
Yeah.
that's going to result in a hangover. So I just stopped. I just had to stop. And so people who are listening who are looking for an out, I'm not saying that my way is the only way. I mean, there's a $1 billion industry of treatment centers that you can use. But for me, I had to learn the hard way in coping.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of things that I did separate to that is I did 75 hard twice before I became sober because I kind of needed to figure out if I could physically be sober. And what I realized, if I would tell people I'm on 75 hard, they would leave me alone about drinking.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, you're in 75? Yeah, I can't drink because 'cause I'm a 75 hard," you know? "Oh, okay, okay, that's real. Well, tell me about that," right?
Like a
So then they
pass.
leave me alone, right, everybody but then I was like, "Well, you know what? I'm actually proud of myself for not drinking, so if somebody has a problem with it, then I really don't need them in my sphere,"
Totally.
you know?
And again, none of this is to say that people who drink are bad and people who don't drink are good. This was really a question about a lifestyle change that you wanted to make
For
on a
me,
personal
yeah,
level
absolutely.
and how it's impacted you in a positive way, but also how it's like kind of expanded your lens of how you see others who've also given it up for their own personal reasons, right? Because you and I touched on this earlier again
Yeah.
on another conversation that both of us, through not drinking anymore,
Mhm.
have ultimately run into people that either surprisingly or unsurprisingly we're meeting who also adhere to the same lifestyle choice, right? So that circle kind of gets a little bit bigger and bigger, and then you feel this sense of familiarity and acceptance in it.
Mhm.
And again, to each their own.
It really is teach your own. Here's the deal, like,
Yeah.
I love the person who could drink 2 drinks and be done with it.
Yeah.
That's how Tracy is my wife. She could have 2 drinks and she's, like, completely okay and, doesn't care to have a 3rd, right? But that's not me.
Yeah.
Like, I want the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th because I enjoyed the way it tasted and I enjoyed the way I felt, and after 2, you're like, "Why not 3?" And then your judgment goes out the window, and before you know it, you're hungover or there's some sort of consequence behind it, and so I'm like, "I'm just not cut out for it. It's just not for me in this lifetime." So and I'm good with that. What opened up? So, on top of that, right, in the middle of this entire, like, process of me not drinking, I also was at the hardest point in my career because the industry had changed. The trajectory of what I had built, and what I I work in mortgage, I build teams. Everybody was running for the hills. Nobody knew, like, the industry was changing, and so, like, I want to say we've lost like more than 50% of the people in the industry just quitting the industry, right?
Totally.
So I had people doing that, going to brokers, like I was just bleeding people. And so every day was a breakup. Every day was a breakup of somebody that I really believed in, that I wanted to help, that was saying, "Hey, I'm going to go do something else, or I
Yeah.
got to go get a second job, or I got to do this." So I didn't really understand how to do all that, but I knew that if I was drinking and dealing with that,
Oh man.
then it was like I was gonna just I don't know, like, maybe implode
Self destruct. Yeah.
self-destruct. So I was like, my best chance of survival in this industry is I have to have an edge.
Yeah.
And my edge was my energy,
Yeah.
and my energy needed to be manufactured, and there was absolutely no fucking way that I can do that drinking. It just wasn't an option.
And
So it
this
had
is
to be cut out.
and this is a perfect segue into actually your how you show up in business,
Mhm.
because it's something that I again very much admire, and everyone who knows you in our industry knows this. You're a leader, a thought leader. You're someone who's a big champion for the industry. You and I were talking about leadership earlier,
Mhm.
and how a lot of people, for their own reasons, they want to aspire into a similar space,
Mhm.
and they think, I want to be a speaker, I want to be this. And
Mhm.
again, to each their own. Some people are made for it, others aren't, and people have to go on their own journey. But we talked a little bit about accessibility
Mhm.
that people have to you as a leader, and this kind of balance that you have to try and create of,
Mhm.
if they're seeing me out there
Mhm.
more than they're seeing me in person, that's a problem, right? Like, people need to know that you're accessible as a leader. I want to talk
Without a
about
doubt.
that because you've brought on people, you've lost some people, so you've learned from these things, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What would you say have been the tenets to bringing people and keeping them here with you within your organization? Because there's a lot of people who listen to this that are leaders themselves,
Mhm.
and this will be very valuable for them.
Well, there's a lot there in that question, but I want to break it down on a couple of fronts. So number
Yep.
one is, when you start to build a personal brand and you start to put out content and you start to get on stages, more and more opportunities slowly open up for you. And the comment I made for you was, if all that people that work for me see is me on stage, me in content, me in, you know, trying to build my personal brand, if that's all they see from me, then they're going to quickly go somewhere else because they're not going to have they it's all now become self-serving to me.
Right.
And nobody wants to work in that situation, right? People want access. They want to know that you are going to help them. And so there's two things that really have to happen. Number one, anybody who works with me knows that they all have my cell. They can all call me 24/7. In fact, like, you and I were doing a podcast, I had 14 missed calls. I went to my office before we did this one and I called every single person back, had a conversation, and we were good, got everything back on track. And now I can come and do this. But people know where I am. So if they see me on like video doing a story about this, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I wonder if I talked to him while he was doing that." Like, they're gonna, because they know they had access.
Yeah.
That's hugely important. People forget that sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
people will either focus too much on their brand and forget about their people, or people focus on their brand and don't worry about their customers. And for me, my customers are the people that I've employed, that work for,
Yeah.
that work with me, work for this company, that I have to support them. So all this is like side project stuff that, you know, gets me a little bit of help in conversion, when gives people a chance to get to know me, like me, and trust me before they truly do on a human level. But my role, man, is I'm dialing for dollars. I'm making connection. I'm having conversations with people, and that's like number one. So I believe that there's not, in my lifetime, I don't believe that my social media or my personal brand will truly dictate that I don't have to ever do that. Now, if it does, bonus, cool,
Yeah.
but it's never going to happen that you and me are sitting here and
Yeah.
5 DMs come in and say, "I want to work with you because I saw your podcast." That's not going to happen. You know, Now I may call somebody and they may say, I saw that podcast about you, and now they're talking, and now, we build a relationship. But I think as leaders, you have to put your people first. And as people who are in sales, they have to put their consumers first.
Would you say that that's probably in, at least in our industry, in the real estate mortgage space, that that's probably one of the biggest management flaws?
I think the biggest management flaw is that there's a lot of people who want to be leaders
Mm,
that want the title, but don't want to do the work. Like, there's a guy that we hired one day, and he was like, "Man, I just want to follow you. I want to do what you're doing. And I want to, like, I'll go city to city with you." And so, what he thought that I did was this glamorous job of getting on airplanes and sleeping in hotels. And, he thought that was glamorous.
yeah.
But what he didn't realize that in order for me to do that, it was hundreds of calls the week before in order to set up the appointments. He didn't want to do the calls.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you want to do what I do, but you don't want to do the work.
Right.
And there's a lot of work that has to be done. I think what people don't realize is that no matter if you have some level of success, it's because there's an insane amount of prospecting that had to happen to get to that.
Yeah.
For me, at least. I mean, I don't know what it is like for you, but I definitely have to prospect really hard.
Yeah. And you walk the walk, right? You've got to be doing
You
it.
have to.
Yeah. And there has to be that balance. But again, going back to the people that work with you and for you, like their accessibility to you
Mhm.
and the example that you set is so paramount to them staying, obviously, and continuing to thrive, but also to not see that you're like off there somewhere else and you don't care as much. Or
Absolutely.
that they're no longer the priority, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always, I have like 80 people that report into my world. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure somewhere in there's somebody that feels like left behind,
Yeah.
But as a leader, like, you take moments in your day and you're like, who's hiding?
Mhm.
Like, who have I not talked to? Who's kind of like, and I have to take stock, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna call that person.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in a while. Like, you have to take stock in that. But I think people think like, oh, I'm not hearing from them. That's a good thing. No, that's not a good thing for me.
Yeah.
If somebody's hiding, it's because they're about to quit, and I got to
Right.
make sure they don't quit. This industry is like, you probably get hit on by recruiters all day, and so that's what's happening to my people right now as I sit here with you. There's a recruiter calling my people,
So I mean, this all comes down to how you show up as a leader.
everything. Yeah.
It's how you show up as a leader. It's how you show up in your lifestyle, with your health, which we'll touch on. But you also like talk to me about your kids, because in the way that you show up for your team and why you have to and why it's important for them to be seen, to know that you are there, that they have access to you. How does that? Because I'm sure it's the same way. I've never been around you and your kids at the same time. I don't think I've actually met them in person. But how do you show up as a dad as well in the same
Well, I'll,
respect?
I'll start with, I will tell you that with my kids, first off, you and me probably, maybe we differ. I don't know culturally, but I didn't have a relationship with my dad the way that my kids have a relationship with me. It's vastly different. Like, my kids and I talk like on a constant, we're in a constant conversation. Um, but there is no doubt in my mind that 10 years from now, I'll have regrets from what I could have, should have been doing. Right. But I can't really focus on that right now. Like, I have a relationship that just is there. Right. Like last night, I didn't even ask my son to work out, but he was like, "Hey, look, I'm not going to work out with you tonight, but I'll work out with you Saturday, Sunday, and Monday." Like, he was like, "But I'm going to work out with you on these days." And I didn't really ask him to, but he wants to hang out. He wants to work out. And those days are going to be limited because, he's 12, and eventually he's not going to want to do that. Right. So, the relationship is there, you know, but again, there's always like times that I wish, like our oldest daughter, we were she's my stepdaughter, but I've been with her longer than her father was around. But like, I looked at my how I was who I was at I was a big drinker at the time,
Yeah.
and there was those hangover moments that I wish were different. But I also think back that I was really immature in the way that I approached it, because I wish that I just stepped in as a father versus I read an article one time, and it was like, try to be the big brother, not the father. And I was like, that was such bad advice,
Hmm.
because I really wish that I had been just the father and not the big brother, for her.
Sure.
And so we have a really good relationship, and she's 28 now. We have a really good relationship, but if anything, I wish that I could have been better the way that I am more like with my kids now versus how I was with her growing up because she needed that and I didn't give it to her the way that I probably should have. So there's a ton of regrets, and part of that was like my head was up my ass drinking.
But I'm sure like now, because there's no time like the present, right?
Mhm.
Like you have a relationship with
Oh
her.
yeah,
She's 20,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're showing up in other ways, right? Because
Absolutely. I mean,
we
like we had a really good conversation recently where, she was looking for a different job and we were like, kind of strategizing around that. And like those are kinds of things that like I love to have conversations with, like adult conversations with her. I'm super proud of her because she is like she has her own house, she has her own,
amazing.
she's operating as like an adult, and it's kind of cool to have these conversations because I feel like who she is today is because of, even the industry she chose to be in is because of what I did. So there's a lot there.
Yeah, well, she's lucky to have you for a
Thank
stepdad,
you,
man.
man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and good for you and how
Yeah.
you're showing up that way. Let's talk about lifestyle
Mhm.
a little bit, right? Because you and I were talking about how we intend to
Mhm.
live well beyond 100, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to 120.
You're going to
That's my
120. Okay,
goal. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say beyond
Yeah.
100, right? And then it'll be house money that
Yeah.
we're playing with at that point.
I love how you say that. Yeah.
You and your wife are very like health conscious. You're
Mhm.
committed to your health. Now, those of you watching this podcast that are not just listening and watching, this man that I'm sitting next, you would never guess. You would think this guy is actually probably because he looks so good. He's got the best head of hair in our industry. Best head of hair. He's one of the best dressed guys. He's radiant. He's magnetic. His skin looks good. He's always smiling. He's always happy. You would think this guy's 10 years younger than me. You would think this, but because he takes such good care of himself, his health is a priority, his lifestyle is a priority, and how he shows up, like he's aging like gracefully. I feel like that's gonna be your second calling is anti-aging
I will.
consulting.
We'll figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll do it. But talk to me about why or how you guys making this like lifestyle choice and putting this at the forefront is kind of helping shape you now, right? Because I'm sure you want your life like the way I was telling you earlier to have
Mhm.
meaning and real purpose behind it, right? And you want to be here for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing like a ton of biohacking, but I do believe in the fact that what I put into my body,
Mm,
right? Like what I eat, I try to eat clean. I try to make sure that, you know, it's very, very few and far between that I'm gonna, indulge into something. I actually just eat for fuel for the most part. I'm not really like I prefer not to go out and have a steak dinner. I rather just do it myself, right? Because I think I'm going to cook it better anyway. But I try to really be conscientious of that, starting there, because then I just feel better. I drink a ton of water. I probably drink like a gallon a day, like that. From 75 hard, that just kind of stuck. And then I work out literally every day. Like I'm like at worst, there's a 30-minute workout, and I always have 30 minutes. I don't care if I'm traveling. I'm not going to Europe, tomorrow. Like, so I always have 30 minutes that I can work
or if
out.
it's late
So
at night.
if it's late at night, like last night, I never work out late, but I was like, I'm not letting this day in because like I got home late and then I was getting blown up, just from work stuff. And then we were kind of talking too
Yeah.
last night. And then I was like, all right. So then at 8:30, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go work out. And, got it in last night because I was like, I can't let a day go by without doing it. And so just those things really help me, in terms of the energy levels.
Yeah.
Like if I miss it for whatever reason, I'm toast, so I have to do it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how has it changed? I mean, dude, like this industry, I mean, the amount of stress that has come from like the change and affordability, and every deal is harder, and underwriters, um, they're scrutinized, so they make it harder too sometimes. But when you look at all that and all the stress that comes along with it, if you're drinking or you're like not in the tip top, like that could just impact your performance. So for me, I gotta have I have to my body and my physicality has to be in the best position.
Yeah.
And it's not like where I want it to be. There's a growth
Sure.
piece with that. And as you know, as you get older, it's not easier.
It's not. It's not as
But
easy.
I'm looking for ways to manufacture. Like we talked about, manufacture energy.
Manufacture energy.
Sharon talks about that a lot. But if we could figure out ways to manufacture energy, then my whole day is different.
And has it affected like in a really positive way? Has it made your marriage stronger that you guys are both kind of
Yeah,
health conscious or
yeah,
your wife
absolutely.
even seeing this side of you?
Yeah, I won't say that she's like running around saying, "Oh, it's amazing," but because the
Do any
truth
of our wives? No, probably
the
not.
truth of the matter is that like if I look back at my life, I think where I'll feel really bad more than anything is that I work a ton of hours,
Yeah.
and sometimes I get home and I got not a lot left to give,
Yeah.
and that's what my biggest regret in life will be that, and that's if I can figure that out in the next few years, really give her more time, I think that she'll be happier, I'll be happier, but I will tell you, I mean, if I was not doing what I'm doing today, and I was still drinking, and it would be, I don't even know if we'd be together anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Because I don't think it was sustainable with the
Yeah.
amount of stress that we were in.
Yeah.
Um, but today, throw whatever you want at me, I'll take it because I'm in a better mindset than I've ever been.
In the space of being an entrepreneur, where, like, I heard this from Sharon
Mhm,
that, he said 80% of my day is shit, 20% is great.
mhm.
I don't know what your quotients are. I felt like when he told me that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right
That's
for
about right.
me.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like the disappointments in entrepreneurship and how you can't let these things really drag you down because you deal with shit all day
Yeah.
and stuff
So,
that could really sink you.
well, okay. So I think the best way to describe this is it's like a relationship, right? So I'll see somebody on Instagram
Yeah.
and there's an attraction to that individual, like you would if you were dating somebody. But it's more of an attraction from I like what they're doing, I like how they're showing up. So I'm gonna start following them, right? So
Yeah.
you follow them, and then you get to know them a little bit. You start engaging, and then all of a sudden you meet in person. You go on a few dates, and then before you know it, they work for you, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you like have this magical moments together, and they're growing, you're growing, everything's great. And then one day they just come to you and they're like, "Hey, I got a better offer. I'm gonna go somewhere else."
Uh,
Right? That breakup, those breakups, those like you get people to a certain level in their career. Those are heartbreaking. Like I had a this happened more than once, but like had people where they started off at like $10 million producers. You get them to 100 million, and then they're like, I'm too big for this. Like I am a movie star now, and I can't I can't take your direction anymore because I need to go bigger, and then they leave
yeah.
and thinking that the grass is greener, and then you look at them and you're like, they've never done it again. They fell out, and so those moments are heartbreaking, man. But that's the name of the game in the business we're in. You
Totally.
just got to be ready for it. But it's never easy when I go through breakups. Like if somebody were to quit on me today, it'll probably be like 2 weeks before I'm like, all right, I can
Move
I
on.
can move on. Yeah, but I take it very personal.
Yeah, but it shows how much you care, right? Because
Oh yeah.
people look at you, they see the life you live. You're a great dad. You're successful in our space. You're a thought leader. You're speaking. You're doing all kinds of things. So they'll think this guy's winning. Everything he touches turns to
Yeah.
gold. He's winning. They don't know
Oh,
that you deal with heartbreak
yeah. Oh, heartbreak,
regularly.
bro. Heartbreak regularly. Yes, that is. But I mean, but isn't that with everybody? I mean, like, we all, I'm sure, there's some level of disappointment that you have to go through in your world.
All the time.
But for me, man, it's, you start you look for me, I look at my day and it starts off with who can I help?
Yeah.
Who needs my help that works for me? And once I think all that's good, then I start prospecting.
Hmm.
Prospecting never goes before the other.
Right.
I can't build business while my current business is not in order.
Right.
And in the mortgage business, you think you're good, and then tomorrow, like 5 deals can go sideways, and you're just like fixing those to make sure that clients
Yeah.
will get their
Plugging
houses.
holes. Yeah.
So it's that, but it's you want to make sure that you maintain those relationships. It is hard, but that's what I do. I mean, it's a weird thing to be in this industry, but it's what I do, and I feel like I'm relatively good at it.
No, you're very good at it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's not, again, I just say like people just don't get, yes, every industry deals with ups, downs, and there's people losing all the time. I think in this world of social media, people are sensationalized with just thinking that guy must be winning. It's so easy for him or
Yeah.
it's happening, but they don't recognize the struggle because so many of us don't post or share about the struggle,
Oh yeah.
right?
No.
The optics are that we share the good moments,
I
right?
did one time. I did talk about it, and I asked Trevor like for advice on this post,
Yeah,
and he was like, "Dude, are you guys okay? Are you in trouble?" Like that's all I got out of it, and I was like, "Well, I'm trying to be vulnerable and let people know that this isn't always like." Is that nah, I wouldn't post that again.
really.
Yeah, but I mean, and I do appreciate it. I mean, whether I take the advice or not, But like some of the things I love when I see a loan officer say, I think what's a mortgage did at one time. He was like, "I'm just sitting here waiting for the underwriter to let me know if my deal's going to go through." And this is this is men, right? Men
Yeah.
win, right? You think he knows everything. So why would an underwriter be, he's like, "No, I called them and I was like, I'm Min Win. Don't you know who I am?" And they're like, "We don't give a shit who you are. Like,
Yeah.
you're waiting to see if your deal's going to go through." So he's like, "I'm just sitting here waiting." And I
Yeah.
was like, that to me made me like him even more because
Yeah.
he was honest about, that we go through. Have you ever sat waiting for a deal from an underwriter?
Totally.
Just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
You can't do anything.
No, it's the most powerless position in the world, or one of them. I shouldn't. There's more serious ones, but yeah, it's
There's serious,
powerless.
but yeah, but it's one of those things where I respect that,
Yeah.
when somebody can be honest about that feeling that
Yeah.
we all have gone through, that we're
Yep.
waiting. So, um, I don't know. I don't mind telling. I don't mind sharing
The
the
dirty
loss.
side of
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
dude.
the
I mean, you
losses of
lose
it.
people, man. It sucks.
Right.
People
It's
want to
part
go
of the
brokers. They think it's better, and
it's part of the journey.
yeah,
And in the spirit of journey, this is a much broader question, but I just want you to find if there's one specific one
yeah.
that you feel our audience would really benefit from hearing, or that you maybe haven't shared with others. Was there a moment in your upbringing, in your development, maybe in your ongoing development as a person, as a professional, as a dad, as a husband, whatever it was, that was a bit of like it was a light bulb moment or an aha that has really played into into your present work? Like, did something happen? Maybe it was something during
Oh
formative
yeah,
years or childhood that you can look
yeah.
back on and you still draw strength or still draw inspiration or lessons from it.
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing that I think a lot of people deal with that don't really understand, and somehow I figured out a way to understand it. But first off, we grew up. There were times where we had government cheese or we were on food stamps or whatever. And um, I remember I'll never forget this one day that I came home and my dad was laying on his bed and he had his like hand on it on his head like that, and like on his forehead, kind of just like sitting there. And I remember, and then mom was like, "Oh, he lost his job. Like dad
Oh,
lost his job, right?" And and I remember being like, "Okay, what are we gonna do?" Because I would always I knew enough to know that we were already like barely making ends meet. So like, what does this mean? And then I remember them talking about like how they had to get food stamps, but like they didn't want to go because somebody down the street, one of my friend's dads, worked the counter at the food stamp place, and they didn't want him to see, and then the whole neighborhood know that we were getting on food stamps. And I was just like, that was like the my life, right? And so,
how old were you, Chris?
probably like 8, maybe, 8 to 10. And
Yeah.
then I remember thinking, so skip to, um, Tracy and I have always lived below our means on purpose because we would just buy more houses. So we just invest, but we were always living like in below our means in a smaller, house or whatever. And so finally one day we were like, let's just buy the house we want, right? So we bought this house, and I remember driving down the street. And by the way, we bought the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood, right? And then we had to fix it up. But I remember driving and seeing a house on a corner and being like, one day I might, before I die, be able to buy that house, right? And then I did the math because I'm in the business, and I was like, wait a minute, I could buy the house like 4 times over. I just chose not to, right? Like we have decided that this is the route to go. But then when we moved into the house and it was all set up, I remember thinking, this isn't really my house. I'm just kind of hanging out here. This is Tracy's house. Like she did the whole thing. I'm kind of a detachment piece because Arjun, I just started realizing that I wasn't worthy of that house. Like, even though my entire income and everything that we've done and like, we're millionaires. It's a weird thing to say, but we are like,
Yeah.
right. And I just am detached from that idea because I have never grown up really with that being an option. So even though I've hit it and I've made it and there's been some success, I still approach everything as if I can go poor tomorrow, bro, and I'd be okay. I could eat, bologna sandwiches and be okay. Like when 2008 happened, when we went to that, like I remember Tracy being like, Are you literally cutting out like coupons?" I'm like, "I will be poor tomorrow and I'm okay with it." Right. Like I remember where to buy the meat. I was like, I'd go to 4 different grocery stores because I knew where the sales were, and I was okay with that. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of what you were leading with, but I do think that there is a worthiness piece that whether, and then sometimes I just got to say, like, I'm going to do it and it happens and I
Yeah.
manifest it. But I think a lot of us get caught up in how our upbringing was and that we're not worthy of it. And we have to break through those things.
Yeah.
And I figured out ways to do it. I'm not fully there.
Yeah.
But I'm only like a year and a half truly in my adult life coping with the feel of things, and like how to understand my emotions. And so, but there's a worthiness. Like somebody said one time, like, hey, when you're dealing with loan officers, some don't realize that they could make $500,000. Like they don't believe they're worthy of it.
Right.
They're okay at 100,000 and they stop working at that point. Like they
Sure.
hit 100,000 in 6 months, they stop working.
Yeah. It's a
And
limiting
that's
belief.
because it's a limiting belief. And I realize I have that. And I have to work through it. It's like for me, it's like I just inch a little bit further and inch a little bit further and inch a little bit further and I get through it. Like you were telling me, you asked me a question. I don't even think you realized. You're like, if I got you a speaking gig tomorrow, would you do it? Because I was saying I'm gonna wait because I'm working on a few things and I'm gonna get some coaching around it and I want to have a dope, speech. And you're like, yeah, but if I got it for you tomorrow, would you do it? I was like, fuck yeah, I do it.
Mm.
And I was like, why was I limiting?
Right.
And you caught it to call me out on it, but in a nice way to say, well, what if I got it for you? Would you do it?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I do it. So it's those little things that limit ourselves. And I think I learned that I have to just keep pushing and keep recognizing the fact that my upbringing doesn't define who I'm going to be.
Right. Your biography
Even
is
though,
not your
yeah,
destiny,
there you go.
right?
It lives with me every day.
Yeah. But I think you like this nice confluence of that experience. And that was a very vulnerable and honest share. And I appreciate you sharing that at that moment with your dad losing his job. I could see that. I feel like all immigrant because your father was an immigrant.
Mhm.
That whole hand over that
Yeah.
it was the feeling of exhaustion or defeat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or the look of it. Whenever my dad would do it, I could tell he just had a long day. If he was laying, even just leaning back in a chair and he had his hand over his head, like
Yeah.
he didn't want to see out. But I'm seeing that as a boy who probably like was looking up to his dad and seeing like that's your Superman in
Vulnerable,
life.
man.
And then you saw that my dad just lost his job. Like, I mean, that could be crushing to an 8-year-old. But
Oh yeah.
what I love about you, man, and this just made me even just raise the level of respect I have for you in so many more ways. I didn't know it could go any higher, but it just did. Was that you have forever remained humble because of those moments and what your family had to go through, where you never are outside yourself. That
Yeah, no.
Chris Median that grew up in this family
Yeah.
system and with his parents and still stuck together. And even though there was shame around it, it was hard and it fucking sucked. And it was painful to see your dad go through that, and then probably the disappointment for your mom, and then it probably meant that you guys got to do less things or experience
Oh
less
yeah.
things or whatever. But you've never lost sight of that, right? Because there was always something bigger, something more important, or maybe it was love,
Yeah.
love for the family, and still like we're gonna stick together, we're gonna be resilient, and it shows up. This is why I can see it now, man. This is why you are who you are. This is it. This is a huge core part of you, man. You're relentless. You're not gonna give up. You've been to the bottom, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
you're not afraid of any setback.
Not afraid at all.
You're not. No.
Like you said today in your speech, you're like, I can start over. I'm like, oh, bro, I'll start over tomorrow. Sometimes I think it'll be even easier.
Maybe
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like,
at least you know what to
yeah,
do now, right?
I know what to do now.
But
Yeah.
like, and even saying all that with your wife, like, I'll be poor tomorrow. Like, and
I will
the
be
fact
poor
that you
tomorrow.
live, like, this is a great lesson for everyone because we're in a society right now and in a space where everyone wants to live beyond their means. They'll have two of something when they could maybe deal with just half of it, in reality. But they want to because there's this race or this image to keep up with the Joneses or to impress other people or whatever. But there's no longevity in that. And how you're living, although you guys listening, you just got a master class in how to make sure that you set yourself up well, but generationally do this.
Yeah.
Just live well within your means and invest or get your money working for you in other spaces. Because that's exactly what Chris and his family are done. That's why they're millionaires. That's why they will be millionaires several times over. And, and this is a great tribute. And you know what, man? Well, I'll tell you this, because I say this about my brother and what he's done for our family's name. Your father in that moment and what you witnessed and whatever you felt, because I felt it with you as you were saying it, and how you're living today and the resilient success that you are and this great dad or whatever, man, you have put respect on your father's name, right? It's your name and it's something you should never, ever lose sight of, brother. Like, be very proud of that because like I said, it made me like love you even more, man.
Thank
for
you,
this
brother.
story, brother. And I think, I think
I'm just trying to hold my shit together. I'm all like hot. I'm sweating. Like, thank you. But thank you for saying that. It's hard to hear because that's one of the things that I'm not good at is hearing those sort of things. That goes back to there's this worthiness thing that I have to deal
Yeah.
with. But but I do appreciate it.
And you are worthy of it, brother.
Thank you.
And you prove it every day, even though there's that humility in you, such grave humility, to
Yeah.
maybe think that you're not, or to just know where you came from. What, I've talked about this on my podcast, and
Yeah.
we'll kind of round it out here with this. And I gave you a little bit of a hint when we were on your show earlier that I ask a lot of my guests this, because you're at a stage in life where I'm sure you're taking stock in what your life means and the impact that you're having, and what Chris Median means to our industry, means to his community, means to his family, means to other people. But if at your funeral, if there's, regardless of how many people show up at it, what is the one word that you want the children in attendance, your children, your great grandchildren, your grandkids, whatever, like everyone that's going to be there, if there's a word that they need to remember Chris Median by, and then you'll know that your life was complete, or that it really meant what you wanted it to mean, is there something that comes to mind?
THERE. He was there.
It was there.
Yeah, my
Wow.
back. He was there.
He was there. And that is definitely Chris. I can tell you that, being a friend of this guy, he's always there. If you need him, you want to call, even if he's busy, he makes time. Like the way he shows up for his people at his company, this is no exaggeration. That's how he is for everybody
Thank you,
in
man.
his life, man. He's a good friend.
Yeah.
He's a really good friend. I love that word. No one's ever given me that one. There.
Thank you, man.
I've never heard that one. That's a very original, and I'll always remember it as being yours.
Thank you, man.
Another question, Chris, that I kind of wrap the show with all the time, and this has been great. I appreciate how vulnerable you've been, how honest, and I got to know a different side of you that I didn't even know. And so this was a gift for me. But no right or wrong answer, what does LFG Energy mean to you?
Well, man, I mean, I think after hearing, your story about and how I've kind of built the narrative around that meaning, it's this ability to take in, everything that has culminated or happened as collective instances throughout your entire life, and use that to your advantage to say, let's just fucking go. Let's what's holding me back? Nothing. Like, let's go. Right. And there's magical moments that I can go back to in my life that I remember that feeling of being like untouchable. But in that moment, looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? I was at the most vulnerable place, and I gave zero fucks. I was like, let's just fucking go. And so, to hear your story around it, and you guys have to listen to my podcast to hear it. To hear your story around the friendships and the things that happened to get you to that moment of let's fucking go. That will forever change me in those moments. Like, I will be in a moment maybe this week where I'm doubting myself and say, I remember Arjun telling that story where he was in a Coliseum. And if I can let that propel me, that's it. So that's what it's about, man. And I think the magic of nonstop, believe in yourself, and you're worthy of it. That's what it's about for me.
It's a beautiful answer. I
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
it, Chris. And I thank you for giving me the time and space, and you also being so open and vulnerable with our audience on this show. It's meant a lot. This has been an amazing episode. I've enjoyed every second of it and was very moved at various points in it. I'll tell you this. He said it and I said it. Industry, all industries, but ours in particular, because that's the one we're talking about, sometimes filled with lots of shit and lots of disappointment, the breakups, the letdowns, the loss of income, the thing that you thought was there, and then you wake up in the morning, it's not. Like, there's lots of it. But there are a lot of great gifts along the way. And one, for me, without a doubt, one gift that I really covet and treasure has been the connection and friendship with this guy through this industry. I wouldn't have met him if I wasn't in this industry, but it's something I really value. So for all the 80% of shit I get, the other 20% and moments like this make it well worth it. So Chris, thanks for this, brother.
Thank you,
I appreciate you, man.
Let me say a couple of things to you, because if for those that are listening, to your audience specifically, you've had these amazing guests that have been on this podcast. So I'm deeply humbled and flattered that you asked me to do this. And I hope that somebody out there was touched by maybe one thing that we talked about. But dude, I mean, I can't say enough about the human that you are and what you're willing to do to go above and beyond for people that you're tight with and that you know. And you said something today in the meeting. You talked about this gas thing, which is give a shit. And I think that, your story and your life and the things that you do and where you put your energy is because you give a shit. And you care about the people that are around you, including me. And it means a lot that you gave me a platform and a glimpse into your audience to share my story. So thank you. I am forever grateful that you allowed me to do this. So
It was
I
a gift
appreciate
for
you,
me,
my
man.
friend.
It was a privilege. But
Thank
thank
you,
you,
brother.
brother, for being
All right.
honest. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next show.
Thank you, guys.